video review is brought to you by BigBadToyStore.com. BigBadToyStore.com, your #1 source for toys.
What's going on, guys? Baltmatrix here, and today we are taking a look at FansProject Columpio and Drepan. Columpio is actually Spanish for swing. You know, like what you find at a playground. So this set comes with Not Sludge and this little Minicon or Arms Micron that's interesting. We'll go with the word interesting. It's a pretty big figure and definitely has some nice posability there in the neck, though the tail is not posable whatsoever. The Drepan, I keep wanting to call him Drepan. The Drepan figure is pretty small, actually, but it is somewhat detailed. We'll get into that here in a second. You see the figure itself is, as I said, posable and can fit on the top of the Dino mode. Now, the Dino mode we'll get into here in just a minute, but we're going to talk about Drepan first. The little robot mode is pretty nifty, I have to say, with one huge problem. And that has to do with the thing hanging off his back. That is going to be his handle in his weapon mode, but it is unsightly, ungainly, and just doesn't work well with the figure. You need those large pieces that are hanging off of his knees in order to get the figure to stand. He comes with a little axe and shield that are, in my opinion, very cool. I like them a lot, but that's stupid thing coming off of his back just really does not work for the figure as a whole, in my opinion. Overall, though, the robot mode is nice, but needs more paint. Just red and silver isn't enough. His transformation is pretty nifty. You remove the axe and the shield, but both of which are pretty well detailed. I like the shield and the axe. And then you start off by folding up the bit that's on his back over his head, collapse the arms on themselves, and then fold them up over the shoulders. Those will then form the hilt and the guard of his weapon mode. Then take the legs and point the knees to the inside of the legs and flip the feet down. And then you could collapse the legs up while flipping out the blade parts. And as I'm doing that here in the transformation, it is a little bit unwieldy sometimes, especially when the blade bits aren't turned enough. You do run into some clearance issues, but overall it's not too bad. And then fold out the blades fully to get this weird double scythe pickaxe thing. I'm not sure what kind of weapon it is. Now, if you're wondering if you could store the axe and the shield in this mode, you can. We'll get into that in a second. The figure also, or the weapon also has this weird ability to be 2 modes. They're not really 2 modes or 3 modes. I prefer the double sickle, we'll call it, or double pickaxe mode best. That's just a personal opinion. For the shield and the axe, you have to put the axe inside the shield first, or you can attach it to the other side of the handle there. But as you see in the video, attaching the axe to the shield and then pegging them together. That just allows you to store it. The reason I'm having so much trouble is because the parts are actually really small. This little guy is pretty tiny, so you are going to run into problems. Overall, the weapon mode isn't too bad. It's not really all that great, though. Now, moving on to Not Sludge. The Dino mode is really nice. I've got to admit that I really like the Dino mode with all that chrome right up front. That's really the only place you're going to find the silver chrome is right there on just behind the head of the body. Now, the place where Drepan was sitting can actually be flipped around or recollapsed back down into the body of the Dino mode. I just like to flip it around to look like that. They look like exhaust ports. Or if you've ever driven a car through, or a SUV that's been made for going off-road, it's got one of those snorkels for air. That's kind of what I figure is going on here. His mouth does open and close just a little bit, but it's really, really sharp, and I don't even bother with that because I end up just kind of drawing blood, so you do want to be careful there. The rest of the dyno mode is pretty solid, but the joints in the front legs, those ball joints that you see by my thumbs, are overly loose. I mean really loose. You can attach all of the weapons. He does come with a big sword, a big gun with a bayonet, and then Drepan. You can connect Drepan in this mode, but it doesn't really look all that good. I just normally keep the sword and the gun posed in this mode. Columpio's transformation is pretty easy. Now I'm doing this at twice normal speed just to speed things up for you guys. The first thing you're going to want to do is pull the back of the dyno mode away from the body and split the back open, and then fold the legs out about halfway. And then what you do is you take the tail and fold it into the body, fold up the tip of the tail, and then just peg it in. And it's actually a very elegant combination or transformation, though it is a little bit not hard, but things do have a tendency to get in the way. Thankfully, the figure is big enough that it's not a huge issue. The other thing I really like is that the rear legs fold up a little bit and they actually peg into place. Now for the upper torso is pretty much going to go exactly how you think it's going to go. The only thing different is when you fold out the chrome bits, you just have to fold in a little tab, and that's it. The only real difficult part about the transformation is getting his head out of the body, which, as you see, I have to use the sword as leverage to get the head out. It's really annoying, but overall, the transformation is pretty easy. I like the robot mode that we end up with. It seems like a little bit more lithe version of the original G1 design, but I do like the overall look of the robot mode. There are, however, some issues, which we'll get into in a little bit. But aesthetic-wise, it's very good looking. FansProject is really good at doing the molds on these figures. They just are very good at the design. As you can see, it's a solid looking figure. However, his joints are a real problem. You see me pointing out some spots, specifically his legs. Those hip joints, those ball joints, and those swivels. I don't think the producers of those parts got the correct measurements. And the reason I say that is because they're incredibly loose. The ball joints in the shoulders are loose. The ball joints in the hips are loose. That tells me that there was a problem with production somewhere. It's just not a very stable figure, even if it's a very good-looking one. How loose are those ball joints, you might ask? Well, I shouldn't be able to pick it up and wiggle it back and forth and have its legs slide around like that. You really shouldn't be able to do that, especially on a $100 figure. When you're able to get the figure to hold still and aim and arm him up, he looks really good. His sword looks fantastic, and I love the gun. The gun with the bayonet at the front just looks so freaking cool. The figure itself looks good. Its ball joints are just a mess. It's really, really weird to have FansProject drop the ball like this. But, hey, what can you do? Now, when you arm him up with Drepan, I don't like the look of this. I get what they were trying to do, but an arms micron is supposed to complement the figure. I don't think this one complements Columpio at all. It's just not a good addition. Here he is next to Classics Grimlock, and I have no idea why I slid in and out like that. Sorry about that. But together, they look pretty good, but, you know, Sludge I've always seen as being taller than Grimlock, not just bulkier. They don't look bad, but the coloring of the two is off. Overall, I have to say that I'm not real thrilled with this set. I'm not going to be continuing with the rest of the Dinobots from FansProject, sadly. I really do love FansProject, but I think that maybe Toy World is doing the Dinobots a little bit better. I like Roar better than I do Columpio. So guys, I'm gonna have to say pass on this one. If you see a maybe $30 off sale, I would pick it up maybe. But other than that, I would stay far away. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video review. As always, I have been Baltmatrix, asking you to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.